Have you been inconsistent in your routines lately? There's been something that you're trying to do consistently and you're thinking, man, I've been so inconsistent with that. I want to let you know that you're a failure and nothing in your life is going to come to fruition. Have you been falling down on your atomic habits? Did you not know that just making tiny amounts of progress every day, it adds up to big progress? Because we know from the influencers, that's the secret to life. It's consistency. Have you been inconsistent? You'll never be one of my billionaire listeners now. Where is your trillionaire grind set? Where is your hashtag hustle? No, obviously, if you have been inconsistent in the routines you've been trying to keep up with, you have a condition that I'd really like to diagnose for you. Dr. Jen is in the house. I'd like to diagnose you with this condition. It's called being a human being. I'm sorry. We're how many minutes are we into this podcast? We're not 2 minutes in, and I'm already yelling. I'm very sleep deprived. That's why. Okay. So it's called being a human being. That is why you can't keep up with your routines. I'm going to talk to you about this in this episode, especially if you have a family, if you're raising kids and you are female. That's a really wordy way of saying this one's for the moms. Like if you are raising kids and you are female. This applies to dads too. If you're raising a family, but also again, a surprising percentage of the podcast listeners are college students, recent college grads. You guys will also be able to relate to this. Anyone who is living a modern life with any kind of demands on your time, I bet you're not being consistent in your routines. And I'm going to tell you why, and I am going to tell you what the answer is, and then you are going to tell me how this podcast is free. And there will be no answer there. You won't be able to come up with that. Welcome to wait. We will get to that main topic in the second half of the show. I keep forgetting to say that for new listeners. I don't want to drive you insane waiting for that. We have a lot of new listeners, and I don't want you guys to feel like, what's happening here? We will get to that topic in the second half of the show. So now I can say welcome to the Jen Fulwiler Show, coming to you from Austin, Texas, where it is probably a cool 106 degrees Fahrenheit where you listen to that. It's nothing. I am your host, Jen Fulwiler. I am very pale. I have no business living in a hot climate. I'm also a stand-up comic, best-selling author, and mom of 6. I had 6 babies in 8 years. This podcast is where you learn the art of the village hustle. That is being a hot girl boss who knows that love and family and community are the foundation of all real success. Our executive producer is Caitlin, and we publish new episodes every Wednesday morning without fail. We do not miss the grind. Never stops on this podcast. We have been so consistent with getting these episodes out every Wednesday morning that you would think that we make money on this podcast. You would think for sure that Jen it's like probably what Jen and Caitlin do after each episode is fill a hot tub with champagne and hang out in it, right? But no, that is actually, I lose money on this podcast because we leave money on the table on this podcast, but we are consistent. So we have that. Oh, don't forget to join my Patreon, patreon.com/thisisjen. My one show of the summer, I think, I'd actually like to get another one, but the one show of the summer, I think, hopefully there will be more, but Chicago, July 30th, I was saying the wrong date. I was saying July 29th. It is actually July 30th. Please spread the word to your Chicago friends, because I feel very bad for my low attention to detail listeners who might have bought tickets on my word that it was on the 29th and not noticed that their tickets are actually for the 30th. I would feel horrible if that happened. So please spread the word to Chicago people. The link is in the show notes. We also have some exciting announcements coming up soon that I had scheduled to announce today. But this is Village Hustle because I have a family and I have lots of obligations. We are heading out to Mount Angel Abbey. This is where a relative of mine is a monk. He's their iconographer out there. Fun fact, I didn't know I was related to a monk until my husband and I converted to Catholicism. So that's kind of an interesting side note. We are headed out there to Oregon to visit him. And with all of this travel, I don't have myself organized for the announcement, but we do have some very exciting announcements coming soon. And I cannot wait to share those with you. Also, in a couple of weeks, I will be announcing my fall tour. You can find out where we're hanging out in the fall. What you need to do is get on my email list. That link is also in the show notes. I send each email personally. This is not like a marketing company that you are hearing from yet. Now, when the Comedy Millions come in, it will be. So enjoy these glory years of the email list when it's actually sent by me. And I don't spam you. It's just, hey, come to your city. You might want to come out to the show. It's a fun email list to be on. That link is in the show notes, or it is also at jfcomedytour.com somewhere. Maybe if you scroll down, I bet you'll find it. Okay. So, I'm really excited. Stay tuned. Listen to next week's episode. This is episode 163. I should have the big announcements in episode 164. And if I don't, just know that I am on the brink of a panic attack because I really would like to get these announcements going. So 164, that episode should have some very exciting announcements in it. I don't know if did I say you're our producer? Caitlin's
yes,
our lady.
Yeah.
All right. And just so you know that we're living the real life when we do these episodes, Caitlin brings her 4 kids and dog over, which combines with my 6 kids and dog. So we have 2 dogs and 10 kids that are running around as we record this. And we have a special guest for this podcast. Yeah. I'm so excited. About 12 feet away from us is a half-dead scorpion. Yep, because that's the kind of podcast I run. There are other podcasters that they sit down in their multi-million-dollar studio. That Your Mom's House. I was on the Your Mom's House podcast. I went down to their studios. No scorpions in their studios. Multi-million-dollar podcast studio. It's crisp. It's cool. They have staff. My podcast is Caitlin and I sitting in a cramped room with a half-dead scorpion 12 feet away that we have angered, and it may be coming after us. I do want you to know, in general, I podcast through any interruptions. In fact, in episode 161, I got a phone call in the middle of the podcast, and I didn't stop. We do this as live. You guys know I was a SiriusXM daily radio host for years. 2 hours a day was my show. So I'm just used to that live experience. I will broadcast through anything. Except a half-dead scorpion coming after us. Now, you might say, why didn't you throw a book on it or something? The naivete of thinking that it just makes them mad. Anything you do to scorpions, like nothing works. It is like fighting a poltergeist. Nothing works. You have all these ideas of what might work, and then you do it, and it doesn't work. Spraying them with like the Raid, the wasp spray, that is their green smoothie drink. Yeah. They enjoy it. They find it refreshing.
That'll bring them back to life.
It gives them more energy to come sting you. And also it is kind of halfway up on a toilet paper holder. So I can't, Lord knows I'm not going to move the holder. Because here's the other thing, scorpions are fast and they are vengeful. They will see you. They will come after you with that little stinger. So I just want you to know how dedicated I am. There are people who make $20,000 per episode of their podcast that don't have any poisonous arachnids in the vicinity while they're doing it. I make a little less than $20,000 per episode. on this podcast, and yet I'm here with you. Travel fatigued. I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning. We're pre-taping this. I had a crazy flight situation. I've been up since 5 o'clock in the morning, canceled flights, madness, stuck overnight in a city I didn't plan to be in, impending arachnid attack. And yet I'm here with you dispensing the wisdom. So let me just tell you, here's what I need from you. Hit the here's what I need from you sound effect. Attention, please. Thank you. I need at least 5 Apple Podcast reviews from this saying that my wisdom changed your life. You don't even hear my wisdom yet. It doesn't really matter what I have to say. I could show you how to make farting noises with your armpit, and I want you to go on Apple Podcasts and say, this podcast is like, it just changed my life. It's just like so profound to me, because I am risking not just me, but Caitlin. How terrible would that be if like Caitlin is she's barefoot. I actually have shoes on. Yeah, I actually have shoes on. Caitlin is barefoot. So if one of us gets stung, because we have so much junk in the studio, we might not see it coming.
I got my
off
the floor.
this would be an episode for the ages if one of us gets stung by a scorpion during the episode. So we'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Will you just hear profound, life-changing wisdom, or will this episode end in screaming drama? Actually, speaking of screaming drama, let me see if I can find. Let's see. Is this the one? I think this is the one. We were actually recording. Of course, I had to put this on Instagram stories. Where did I end up? Let's see. I'm going to play. These are the stories we just did. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
This is when it started moving. Listen. So this is how this podcast might end. Listen. So that was, we thought it was dead and it moved. So that if the podcast ends that way, just know we're fine. We're fine.
Mostly. My
father once said to me when I was flipping out about scorpions, he really said this to me. So my father was a 6th generation Texan. I mean, this side of my family, they came to Texas when only the most deeply mentally ill white people came down. It was like, well, we just want to die. We want, how fast can we die? We'd like to know. So let's move to Central Texas, which has some of the most vicious fighting with some of the tribes that were around here and everything. I mean, it was horrible. And they're like, yeah, let's just head down here in like 1853, see what happens, see kind of how it goes. That's my ancestors on that side of the family. And one time I told my father, I said, I saw a scorpion in my room and I'm so terrified that I would get stung by a scorpion while I'm sleeping at night. And he said, oh, that happened to Papa one time. And he said, what's funny is because they're the little pincers get stuck on things. So it got wrapped up in Papa's pajamas and it kept stinging him as he was trying to get it out of the pajamas because it would just make it mad when he was trying to shake it out. Oh, the fun times. The fun times. And my this grandfather lived 10 miles away from here. So I said, that sounds terrifying. My father actually said to me, deadpan, this was his chicken soup for the Texan soul advice. He said, Jen, I don't know what you're worried about with being stung. He said, their stings are no worse than a tarantula bite.
Because I've had one of those before.
So yeah, guys, if you ever encounter a scorpion and you're worried about being stung, guys, it's no worse than a tarantula bite. This is the thing. These are the things that your Texan relatives actually say to you. Okay, so let's hurry through this episode. Actually,
yeah, right.
Okay, let's get to. I will do fewer tangents.
Now I'm scared
in this one. Okay, can I just say quickly that you are suffering more than you realize without a village. And this was hit home to me. You guys need to go stalk the In Honor of Design Instagram if you want to see what a trash heap your life is. If you want to see what an isolated dumpster fire of an existence you are living. And I've always noticed this about Anna. And by the way, we're friends. I love her. And I am so grateful that she shares what she shares on her Instagram. So she is one of, I think she's one of maybe 11 kids, 10 kids, something like that. She's from a very big family and they are very close. She and her siblings are very close. I believe both of her parents are still living and they have get-togethers. So she has, this might be incorrect, but something like 9 or 10 brothers and sisters. And then she herself has, I believe, 6 kids. It's 6 or 7. So she has a big family. I mean, when you're talking about this number of people, we're rounding at this point. This is just a lot of people. And I believe her husband has multiple siblings as well. Keep in mind, I am an only child. My husband is an only child. My dad was an only child. And my husband's mom was kind of estranged from her side of the family, and we didn't live near my mom's brothers and sisters. So my experience of life and community is the polar opposite of Anna's experience. And she posted something on Instagram that just really caught my attention and I thought was so interesting. And I strongly encourage you to look this up, even if maybe you are listening to this podcast in 2025 when I am so rich and maybe you found me because we are in like a billionaire support group together and we're just like, it's so hard to be so rich, like what should we do about the riches? And that maybe that's how it's years later and you found this podcast. Go back to July 2023 of the In Honor of Design Instagram and look at these posts that Anna is writing about moving to a town where it's either her grandmother or somebody, some kind of matriarchal figure lives there, but then multiple siblings live there too. And they were moving into this beautiful historic house that they're moving into. And they were surprised by all of this family showing up. So what you will see in this video, and I'll hold it up a little bit. I'll see if I can get the Patreon people to be able to see this. You see droves of people. It's like the mothership had landed. People are coming out from behind bushes, from behind trees. People of all different shapes and sizes, and they're all heading out, and it's this beautiful collection of human life. And I want to say there's some singing. I'll play it in a second, but then listen to what they say in this clip. They say this traditional thing about the gifts that they are bringing to welcome Anna's family into their neighborhood. And it's, well, here, let me just play. It's this very, very beautiful thing. For those of you on Patreon, you kind of see it.
So that this house may never know hunger. Salt. So life always may have flavor. And wine. So that joy and prosperity may reign forever.
Did you hear that? They brought, I forget what the first one was, but they brought salt so that life will always have flavor, wine so that life will always be interesting. It was kind of this poem she read. And I'm just like looking at all of these people. I'm like, we'd have to go back 4 generations for me to have that many relatives in one place. You're related to all these people. You're related to them. That is so wild to me. And so in another post, her Instagram is so interesting to look at right now. In another post, she talked about family surprising them to help them move in and unbox. And then I almost cried with this one. She was posting about her siblings' kids being there, and her children were just overjoyed that her siblings came over. I think one of them lives next door. One of her immediate, either a grandma or a sister or someone lives next door. And the kids came over and her kids are like hugging and they're so joyful and they're so happy together. This is what a village looks like.
Yeah.
And you and I don't have that. I know that some of my listeners are like, I was actually talking to a friend the other day that she actually had to cut off her parents, both of them. It was a very toxic situation. There was some addiction, and it just got to that point that she could not be in touch with that side of her family. And she is also an only child like me. So there's no siblings. Her spouse has one sibling who has their own issues. That sibling doesn't have kids, and they're not really in close touch with that sibling. So yeah, when they move in somewhere, no one's there with the salt so that life can be interesting and the wines. There's no one to help. And there is this very visceral feeling. This sounds dramatic, but for those of you who don't know what it's like to be an only child, daughter of an only child, married to an only child, sometimes there can be this feeling of, nobody cares if we live or die. Because family is ultimately the people who has your back. And now that Joe's dad has died, his mom has died, and my dad has died, so ain't a lot of people looking out for the Fulwilers. His uncle was really kind of the main father figure in his life, and he died. So it's a psychologically unsettling feeling to not have much extended family. We do have my aunts and uncles. Thank God. If we didn't have them, that it would be bleak. It would be very bleak. But my mom comes from a culturally Irish Catholic family, and so they did the Catholic irresponsible with family planning thing, and thank God they did. It is so grim to think about what our lives would be in terms of family if my mom didn't have her brothers and sisters. But they live on the other side of the country, so we don't see them very often. But you should really look at Anna's social media and realize that is what you were meant to have. And you don't have it. And no wonder your life feels kind of hard. If you live in a situation like that, especially that she has a lot of family around there, and they've all tended to live in that community. So I'm speculating a little bit, but I get the impression that they know a lot of people on the street. It's a very safe street. You can let your kids run around outside unsupervised. That's essentially free childcare. Yeah. It's essentially free child when you can just send your kids outside, and it's like in the 80s, just tell them to come home when the street lights come on. Well, that's free childcare, and that's how mothers have done it from time immemorial. In more recent times, it was they'd play in the neighborhood, and before that, it was kids had farmland to run around, or they would run around in tribes with the other children. Women have never been the sole caretakers of their children all day. They've never done it. And so if you are feeling exhausted by that is because your body is like, girl, what is going on here? We were not meant to do this. This is very unnatural. Where are my 7 sisters? Where are my 4 nieces? Where is my great grandma who lives with us, who is going to hold my baby while my nieces play with my toddlers and my cousins have a good time with my teens? Where are all those people? That is what your primal brain is screaming when you try to do all things for your children all summer or any time of year. Your body is recognizing that you weren't meant to do any of this. And that's what, we talked in the previous episode 162. Yes. Episode 162. We talked about you guys tell yourself too often that you're not trying hard enough. You'll say, oh man, it's summer and I let my kids watch screens for 3 minutes. Can you believe it, Jen? I'm not trying hard enough. I'm just not trying hard enough. You know what's interesting? This is the study that I want to commission sound effect, the special one that we have for that.
The special one?
Yeah, just the yeah, the custom one that we had made for that. I'm actually getting chills at the profundity of this insight. I'm this. Oh, I'm going to do this when the Comedy Millions come in. I'm going to do this study. Are you guys ready for this? You're not ready for this. Okay, listen to this. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take you all. I'm going to take my podcast listeners. I'll take a sample of women. I'm going to have scientists follow them throughout a day and have them parent their children who are home for summer only as much as feels mentally healthy for them. As soon as they start getting maxed out and stressed out, they, for the purposes of this study, can go do something else. They can just let the kids be on screens or whatever. They can go scroll their phone, but they can stop parenting and ignore the situation and then just come back to it when they feel ready. I bet you anything that what that study would reveal is the amount of parenting that you end up doing when you follow that natural rhythm of what feels healthy and natural for you is the amount of parenting that women have historically done in a village setting. I bet you anything. If you look at, let's say, if you look at a tribe that lives the way it's a tribe that they still live the way that humans lived for 100,000 years, like a million years, whatever. They still live in that a more quote unquote primitive way of living, like just without electricity, without all these modern conveniences in a tribal setting. When you look at footage of tribes like that and you study them, you find that the actual amount of hands-on, eyes on my kids, direct parenting that women do in a day it's not like all of their waking hours, because again, the kids are being entertained by the village. The teens are helping with the younger kids and babies. The elderly grandmas are holding the babies. And so the village is kind of providing childcare. I bet you anything, if you look at the number of hours of hands-on parenting that the ancient, prehistoric village tribal women would have done, it'll be about the same number of hours that you would parent if you just let yourself relax and actually be happy and give yourself a break. That would be an amazing study. That would be groundbreaking. You know what? I'd be on. Do I have some glasses? I don't have glasses. You guys just watch. Yeah, I'm a stand-up comic, but you just wait. You just wait until I'm being interviewed for The Economist, and I'll put on a blazer, and I'm going to be on. I'll be on 60 Minutes, and I'll be on The Economist. And I'll talk about my groundbreaking study, and they'll be like, "How is she also a stand-up comic? This is crazy."
Is happening?
Because that would be groundbreaking, and I know that is what it would reveal from my experience watching so much footage of these types of tribes in college, and then an experience as a parent myself. I know that is what it would reveal. So the problem is that you guys don't get that, and you listen to Instagram influencers and not your body's primal wisdom that's telling you to stop doing glitter crafts with your children before you die. You're not listening to that. You're listening to Instagram influencers. And so you think that you are supposed to be doing hands-on parenting for, what would you say? Let's put a number on it. Listeners of this podcast, for those of you who are parents, how of the standards you hold yourself to, how many hours of eyes on your kids, active hands-on parenting do you think you should do? Assuming you stay home or you're around the kids, it's summer, you work from home or whatever. If you were perfect, I'm not saying you're actually always doing this, but the standard you hold yourself to, you know the things you hate yourself for when you lie in bed at night and you think about what a terrible mother you are. Okay, if you actually did all the stuff you want to do, what percentage of your waking hours would be spent in hands-on parenting? I mean, I bet by your standards, it's probably like 90%. You probably think you should be actively parenting, doing something with playing blocks with the toddlers, making, a scale model of the Basilica of Notre Dame with toothpicks and Legos, that sort of thing. I bet you think that's what you should be doing. And that is why you're slowly going insane. That is why it feels like motherhood is melting your brain. The problem is not motherhood. The problem is not your kids. The problem's probably not even your spouse. Probably. Probably. The problem is that your standards are set by Instagram influencers and not a knowledge of how women were designed to raise kids. So to take this back to us stalking the In Honor of Design account right now, that is our project. We podcast listeners we're stalking her account. Again, she moved it. It was like 2 weeks ago. So you actually have to go back to late June when she started this move-in process. Check her stories all the time because she's always doing this family stuff on stories. And you will see how even she doesn't live quite the same, ancient human history tribal setting as we're designed to have, but it's closer. And you can imagine if you lived in a situation like that, yeah, your kids are going to be entertained a lot more because cousins are constantly coming in and out, and aunts and uncles, and it's you just know the people around you, so you can let your kids out unsupervised, and it's a whole different life than you're living. So this kind of builds perfectly on the previous episode. The issue is not that you're not trying hard enough. The issue is that you are living in very unnatural circumstances, and you don't understand that you're really not supposed to be spending some massive number of hours of active, hands-on parenting every day. And a little postscript to this, I'm going to lay this out in more detail in another episode, but one of the things people sometimes say when they see examples of this is they say, well, that's nice for her, but these people would get on my nerves. Honestly, it would just get on my nerves to have people around. And look, no one understands this better than I do. No one lived not now, I guess, actually, but lived a more individualistic life than I do. Again, only child, daughter of an only child, living in Texas in the United States. I mean, I live in the most individualistic state in the most individualistic nation in probably, arguably, human history. And so, I mean, the idea of hating people and wanting them to leave you alone is truly so close to my heart. I understand that so much. And as I said, we're pre-taping this, and yesterday was a travel day for me. I shouldn't repeat this, but I texted one of my older children who has a deeply sarcastic personality like I do, very dark sense of humor, very, very dark sense of humor like I do. I shouldn't repeat. I just need you guys to know how dark my sense of humor can go. Hit the dark humor warning button. I had been boarding a plane. I was boarding a plane and I encountered my fellow human beings on that plane. And I sent a text that said, listen, I want you to know that if I ever die in a plane crash, my last thoughts were that I'm glad some of these other people are dying too. It was a bad travel day. It was, but that's where I just have to be honest that that's where my heart was. It's if this particular flight goes down, I want you to know that your mother was not crying. She was not afraid as she saw the flames out the window and the ground growing closer and closer. Her last thought was pros and cons. Pros and cons to that situation. That man who gave me a little bit of constructive criticism as I was boarding the plane, like as if he's the lord of the plane, he can tell me how to walk on a plane. The other man who proved that chivalry is dead, that he actually pushed in front of me, like knocks a woman over to try to get where he's going. I see why Jesus might need to have a talking to with these people. And if I have to sacrifice my life for them talking to Jesus a little sooner, I'm okay with that plan, actually. So the way this relates back to this lovely discussion of village is I hate people. Listen, I've been up since 5 o'clock in the morning, okay? I haven't had a lot of sleep in many a moon, all right? I'm very tired. I've had a lot of frustrating travel experiences. So I can't get on here and lie to you people about, it was so good being at the airport. It just made me like people a lot. So I say all of this to say, if you think that I have a natural temperament for people to being in and out of my house, like, it's Bob showing up. Didn't know he was coming over.
Bob.
Look, for sure, I would need an IV Valium drip to live an actual village life. I admit this. I preach village life all the time. It would probably kill me. I mean, I can't have an unregulated flow of people in and out of my house. But I will say, I think I would ultimately get used to it, and I would try to remind myself the meaning of life is to let people annoy you. Do not buy into the secular Western idea that it makes for a good life to construct your entire existence so that you are never around people who annoy you. That's a horrible life. You know where you can go where people will never annoy you? I have a great place for that. It's a coffin. You can be left completely, and nobody will annoy you when you're in a coffin. But while you are still part of this world, you need to be around other human beings. And the downside of that is that they're really annoying. They're super annoying. But the meaning of life is to give and receive love with other people. And so, yes, if you actually have that village life, yes, your cousin will tell you it looks like you've gained weight. Yes, your sister-in-law will make passive-aggressive comments about how you're raising your kids. Yes, all of this is going to happen. Your chatty aunt will stop by and talk your ear off just when you're trying to get started on some awesome journaling. Yes, all of this will happen, and it will annoy you, but that is the meaning of life. And what happens when you stick with it and you don't run away from it is you end up finding your place in the village. People get to know you and you get to know other people. And it just kind of works out. Like if I had a true village setting, people would say, we noticed that Jen starts screaming, "Why are all the people talking to me?" And she collapses in a corner in her kitchen and starts drinking vodka straight out of the jug when we stop by unexpectedly. And so she's kind of like the quirky person in the village that we've learned, maybe don't stop by her house unexpectedly. and it works. I mean, it all works out when you stick with it, when you realize that the meaning of life is to let other people annoy you. It all works out in this surprisingly beautiful way, even for those of us who truly have a heart full of hatred for most of our fellow human beings. Village life can still be beautiful, even for us. And that is the kind of sentimental content.
That's not as good as it's gonna get.
This is about as sentimental as it gets on this podcast. I swear, some of the people that I have encountered on planes lately, okay, so anyway.
They're all great people.
Right. Sometimes I'm like, I know that God loves these people in his own way, but I'll sit there and I'll think, God has horrible taste. I mean, if he really loves that guy. I told you guys, what was the episode where I was talking about the prison boat? That was it was two. So what are we on now? It was 161. Mm-hmm. When I was talking about how I was imprisoned, it was this terrible. If you guys should listen to it if you haven't. It was really a pretty grave situation. I mean, it was worse than being, like thrown into a developing country war zone prison. And in this prison situation, I encountered a man who he was wearing kind of longer, like sort of beach shorts. It was at a prison beach, and he had on a T-shirt that said, "This is why I can't wear shorts." and it had a vulgar drawing of a cartoon man whose genitalia was so enormous that it was spilling out of the shorts on the cartoon.
How old was he?
About 72, I would guess. Yeah. Oh, well, I assume my yeah. Oh, I don't think that my. Oh, yeah. I don't think that my podcast listeners were like, I bet he was hot too. I bet he was a guy who has like a lot going on in his life. And he was quite a, rotund man as well. And that is when I turn to prayer. I turn heavenward and I say, Lord, you have really terrible taste. I mean, if you love this person also, really, we need to talk because you could raise your standards, just a little bit. Just a little bit. Let's talk. Okay, let's get to the main topic. Quick promo, the Brain.fm app. I use it every single day. When the Comedy Millions come in, I will give a lot of credit to Brain.fm and how it has helped me focus and just girl boss around in the ways that I need to girl boss around. I think you have to go to their website to use this code. So first of all, you can just download the app. You don't have to get the premium version. It's great without it. And you can just, if you do get the premium version, just get it on the app. But I think you can also go to their website and then you will, my daughter's,
Oh, there we go.
this is the same daughter.
I called last. Oh, it was a
I'm answering. Hang on. Let me see. Can she hear? Pammy, can you hear me? Okay, I'm doing the podcast, right?
Oh, I thought you were finished.
Oh, no, we're recording right now. Do you want to say anything to my podcast listeners?
Oh, hey guys. That was a mistake. My bad. I thought your phone was off during the podcast.
I put it on. I'll take a screenshot. Here, I'm holding it up for my Patreon people. It is on Do Not Disturb. My Patreon people who watch the full video episodes. What?
I think you went to setting. Okay, because Do Not Disturb, it automatically adds contacts that you let call, so you have to go to settings and go to focus and remove all the people it lets you call while on Do Not Disturb.
Pammy, you don't know your mother at all if you don't think that I have told my phone that my family cannot contact me while it's on Do Not Disturb. You don't think I know that? And I already did that?
I think you do. I don't.
Well, we'll look at it later.
Did you hit save?
Oh, yes. Did I hit save? Yes, I did.
I was wondering if I could sleep over at Miss White's house.
Yes, that's fine. Okay, well, now my podcast listeners know your last name. Okay. Yes, that it kid.
Miss Assistant's house.
Yes, okay. Miss Executive Producer of the podcast. Yeah, sure. Okay. Any Oh, wait, tell them what?
I'm the star.
Oh, okay. Hey, do you know my Patreon website to give out? I was just going to give that out.
Isn't it just jenniferfulwiler.com?
Well, yeah, you're right. That is my website. Patreon.com/thisisjen. You can see my phone that I have Do Not Disturb on. Oh, hey, Pammy, there's a half-dead scorpion here in the studio, so don't come in here unless you want to get stung, okay?
Just let the cat eat it.
What? Oh, let the cat eat it. That's a good idea.
That's actually
I didn't. We have a studio cat.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, that's a great. Thank you. Okay.
Brains on the
yeah.
phone here.
Hey, don't leave without me. I want to spend the night.
Well, yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So my kids don't know about saying bye. Okay. Well,
that was good.
That was this.
With 10 kids,
I will say there is no podcast like this one. I mean, you don't have to say that as a positive statement, but you do have to admit
That's true.
that there is no podcast like this one on planet Earth. So, okay. You are probably, I was talking about Brain.fm. Okay, so the discount code is GenF. That is Gen with one N. If you go to their website, you can get 20% off it on your premium subscription with the code GenF, JENF. But honestly, whatever, just download the app and just get the premium subscription. I don't even care if you use my code, but it really is changing my life. Okay, now now that we had that phone call interlude, you may have heard that I'm not a fan of the concept of atomic habits. Have I ever mentioned that?
Maybe once or twice.
So I've been talking to quite a few people lately, and this is related to our previous episode. If you didn't listen to that, I really recommend it because this builds on that. So 162, Try Hard. This builds on that episode. So people are saying, I'm not keeping up with my routines. Wow, Jen. This is why my millions haven't come in. This is why my crochet millions haven't come in. My Etsy millions haven't come in because I promised myself that I would get up early and I would take a walk, and I haven't been consistent with that. So how could I possibly expect to have any kind of success in my life because I haven't been consistent? And, I follow this really inspiring influencer who was talking about the importance of consistency. And in his 24 years on this earth, he was saying he learned this wisdom from his dad. His dad is a Fortune 500 CEO. And as his dad was buying him the Lamborghini that he has, they were talking about whether his dad should pay for him to have a penthouse apartment or just more of like a palatial home that would have like a full gym in it. And he was talking about how just being consistent in your morning routine really helps. And so that is why he always has his butler make sure that the green smoothie is ready by 5:15 a.m. because that just really helps him do his morning nature walk that he does barefoot because connecting with nature is really important. And so I was just realizing that my own routine is just not nearly as consistent as that guy's, and I just really need to work on that. And there are obviously no differences between his life and mine that would make it a little easier for him to be consistent in his routines. So I just realized that this is my problem, that I'm not consistent. Members of what I think of as the Village Hustle Club, people who do not live in the culture of death, who do not yearn for coffin life, where nobody ever bothers you, no one has you don't have obligations to anyone, no one's ever calling you just to chat. You don't have to go visit anyone in a nursing home. You don't have to take time out for baby showers and visiting people's new babies and nothing like that. No one needs anything from you. People who don't live that kind of life. Let me point out to you that consistency is going to be very hard for you because you have certain aspects of traditional village life in the sense that maybe you have kids, maybe even your parents live kind of close by and you see them sometimes or something like that. So you do have those obligations that cause interruptions in your atomic habits. But what you don't have, and this is a critical insight, and I think, in fact, I'm going to be discussing this more this summer because people feel very routineless during the summer. What you don't have is a village tempo to set your routines. Newsflash. Historically, humans' routines have always been set by the village, not by individual willpower. Hit the I'm going to repeat that statement button. For most of human history, the vast majority, your daily routines were set by the tempo of the village, not by your personal willpower. And if you're beating yourself up about not having the willpower to have some perfectly consistent routine every day, that is because you were never meant to do that through personal willpower. Your village would set the routine in any other time and place in human history. For women, for example, the village would ride, the tribe would, everyone would kind of start waking up about the same time. And then the women would all head out to walk down to the river. Let's say it would be about a mile walk or so. So the women, they take the little kids, and then also the teens would kind of go almost like a little herd. The teens would go and they'd be kind of watching the little kids, and maybe some grandmas would come along and be holding the babies, or the moms would have babies in little sling things. And so they would go down to the river to do washing and to fetch water. And no one had to be on their trillionaire grind set to do that at 6:20 a.m. every day. because they were just going with the flow of the village. Routines have always been set by your village. And that's why a lot of us during the summer feel like our brains are slowly melting. Because for those of us whose kids go to school, that is our village. And doesn't it feel like that? I mean, when you're at the school drop-off, it does feel that way. You see familiar faces. There's the hustle and bustle. Everyone has to be somewhere at the same time. And I actually think that is probably the closest thing we have today to what humans have historically had of these morning and afternoon routines of everyone gathering, everyone going to the same place. And so when you don't have that in the summer, it is terribly hard to keep up with routines, because routines were never meant to be pushed forward by personal willpower alone. Another example is electricity is very, 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 very recent in human history. I mean, what percentage of people who have ever lived on this earth had electricity? Because not even everyone has electricity today. I actually think it is like 99.999% of human beings who have ever lived did not have electricity. Well, there's a routine for you. How about this? You want to have a consistent bedtime? How about the sun disappears from the sky and you don't have a light switch? I talked about this in the last episode. We touched on this in 162. That will keep you on a consistent bedtime routine if you've ever had the misfortune of going camping. Or if you've ever stayed in a place. We stayed in a place in Costa Rica one time where the lighting was just very dim. I mean, it was just not more than candlelight. It was the light bulb. It was like having 3 candles lit. And even me, as the consummate night owl, I was actually probably asleep by like 10 p.m., which for me, that's for like you guys being asleep at 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. Because there's just, your eyes get tired just searching for stuff to do in the dark. It's just exhausting to try to get anything done when it is inky black outside. And there were even some rituals around, like, people, actually, that's why they, you hear about harvest moon festivals. Okay, this is how my Texan farmer ancestors are rolling over in their grave. I did not know until this year that harvest moon, they actually do harvest moon festivals around the actual phases of the actual moon. And that is why you don't always, I mean, it shifts each year. Like, Joe likes to do a harvest moon sailing regatta. And I said, well, just for my comedy tour schedule, when is that going to be? And he's like, well, we'll have to check the phase of the moon, because they literally do it when it's the full moon in October. So anyway, that is an example of something that when it was harvest moon time back 500 years ago, you would harvest at night because that's when the moon was out. So there was your routine. You didn't have to put it on your calendar that it was like, I'm going to hustle and do some night work on the farm on this day because that's what's on my calendar. And I made a commitment to myself, so I'm going to follow that commitment. It's like, no, the moon's only going to be full for a few nights here. So, like, let's get this done. Routines were set for you by outside forces. And if you feel like your willpower is not doing a very good job of propelling you through your routines, that's because it was never meant to do that. That's because you were never designed for that. It is not a moral failing. You can stop beating yourself up about it. You're not like a bad person. You're not lazy. Especially, okay, look, you might be lazy if it's something you've tried a couple times and you just kind of quit. All right, go watch some David Goggins videos. Let him yell at you. And then maybe you'll get over your laziness. But if this is something that you've been trying to do, this routine a lot, and you really care sincerely, you have given it the old college try, A for effort, really. Just personally, you wanted this to happen, and you tried many times and it wasn't happening. I am here to tell you that's not a failure of your willpower. It's just, that's an unnatural thing to keep a routine going based on your own force of will without a village to push you through it. So what do? Do we just give up? Do we give up in despair? Do we let the culture of death people win? No. Do we say, oh, we're not going to hustle, we're not going to girl boss because it's too hard, it's just too hard to do it? unless I have a 24-year-old male influencer life. So let's just let them be the only ones to have a voice in the marketplace of ideas. Let's keep living in a culture where any women who have children are relegated to niche positions without a voice in the marketplace. Let's make sure that nobody who has any kind of faith ever has a voice. God forbid, we wouldn't want people like that being successful and having money and having an impact. Let's make sure that we are just poor and nobody listens to us. No, that is not my take. You need to sprint. You need to master the concept of the sprint. When you have a village life, in the sense that you have a family, you have kids, you have obligations to people, but you don't really have that true tribal village that is pushing you through your routines, you need to master the art of the sprint. Meaning this: you decide what it is that you would like to do on a more long-term basis than one day, because one day in a village-based life can get kind of crazy. So as someone who has family obligations, who's raising a family, you need to expand the time frames that you think in, instead of saying, I will do all of these important things this one day. Well, look, your grandma could need someone to pray a rosary with her in the nursing home on that one day. And so all of your planned routines or whatever are going to go out the window. The key to village hustle is to think in terms of weeks and months and not in terms of day. The key to village hustle is expand the time at which you are holding yourself accountable for what you would like to do. And the way that shakes out is that you will find that you start mastering the art of the sprint. Here is what I mean by this. Let's say, for example, that you would really like to take walks more often. You think walking is good for your health, maybe a jog or whatever. And you've been listening to influencers, so you feel like you are just a horrible human being with no redeemable qualities if you don't stick to your commitment. You made a promise to yourself. You need to stick with it. So stupid. I'm trying to do the most condescending facial expressions that I possibly can. When you let go of this idea that it matters whether you do it day after day after day, and you just say, this is my goal for this week. I'd like to spend 4 hours outside walking. I think that would really be great, or jogging. I think I like that. It's invigorating to me. So my plan is to do it 45 minutes a day for a few days. But I'm not wed to that. It is fine if that doesn't happen. I'd like to do it every morning for 45 minutes, but whatever. Like, I'm going to delete my streak apps in disgust of, did you do your streak of like 7 days of walking? I'm going to delete those in disgust and just say, what I'd really like to do is get in 4 hours of jogging and walking this week. And so let's say that first day you got your jogging shoes all laced up and you're so excited and you're ready to go, and your toddler starts throwing up just right. And because that's exactly how it would go. Mm-hmm. And you say you're going to do it later and then it just doesn't happen. So that is when the old you, the pre-Jen Fulwiler show listening you, would have beat yourself up, and you would have said, oh my gosh, these atomic habits are just, this is terrible. I made a promise to myself that I didn't keep. But the new you, the post Jen Fulwiler show listening you, is going to say, this is just not even a big deal. I will just add the 45 minutes that I wanted to get today. I'll just add that to the tally. And so tomorrow, I'd like to walk for an hour and a half. Now, you do have to partner with your family on this. Do not set these goals in isolation and then hit your spouse with this on Sunday and be like, I can't explain it, but I have to be gone from the house for 4 hours. That doesn't work. Again, the influencers all miss that because they live very isolated lives. You really can't set your big goals in isolation. Your family has to have some idea of what you are going for so that they can just be aware that if it comes Friday night and I have not gotten the work done that I said I would get done. I am burning it all down. and trust me, your family will love it. Everyone loves being around someone with mission and goals, and they'll cheer you on. And one of your kids will be like, hey, you know what? This is so exciting. Can I make dinner Thursday night? Because I know you're going to be able to do this. You just watch. You watch how your family is invigorated by this and rallies around you. So you tell them that with the jogging, guys, it's so important to me to jog a total of 4 hours this week. It would feel so good. It would feel so incredible. I would love to do that. And here's why. Don't forget, start with why. Simon Sinek has that great talk. It's targeted at businesses, but it applies more to you. Start with why. So you tell your family, man, I've been feeling so sluggish and just so like I'm overwhelmed by a lot of things, and jogging really clears my head. I think that this could just be incredible if I could get in 4 hours a week. So you tell your family, they're like, man, we're rooting for you. You can make this happen. So Monday, again, toddler starts throwing up, so it doesn't happen in the morning. Now, here's the thing. Because you weren't beating yourself up about your routines and you're in this sprint mentality that I'll just sprint through it when I get a chance because I don't know when I'll get a chance. You don't have that feeling of failure. Yeah, you had a loose plan to jog first thing in the morning, but there's no negativity in your emotional space when it didn't happen because you're out of atomic habits mindset and you're into sprint mindset. Yeah, I'll just make it up another time. What's interesting is you are actually more likely to take consistent daily action because if you don't get it done first thing in the morning, because there is no feeling of failure, you're actually in a pretty good mood. You're pretty high energy later in the evening. So let's say you're done with work for the day if you work, or if you don't work, whatever, maybe your husband comes home from work, and you haven't been beating yourself up and thinking about what a failure you are all day, so you're in a great mood, and you say, hey, you know what, I did not get that 45-minute jog in this morning. Do you mind if I run out real quick? I would just feel so good. I got an audiobook. I'm listening to the Jen Fulwiler show. It's this podcast. You would never believe that she does not make money on this podcast. So it's so good. And so whereas imagine if you made a promise to yourself and you have to keep it, that you would do it definitely in the morning because that's your morning routine. That's like your habit. Well, then you're just going to feel like garbage all day. And let me emphasize, I cannot emphasize how much negative emotions sap your energy. Negative emotions have a very dire physical impact on you. And so, look, sometimes there's a place for having negative emotions. If there's something bad going on or you did something, I'm not saying to never have negative emotions, but I cannot emphasize enough the critical importance of not heaping negative emotions on yourself that don't need to be there. It physically weakens you. So letting go of that guilt that you didn't do your morning routine in the morning, I think you're actually pretty likely to get it done at another point in the day. Maybe you're in such a good mood, 9:00 p.m. rolls around. You're like, but you know what? I'm doing it. Let's run. I don't care. Like, let's run. Let's make it happen. Or let's say it doesn't happen that day. So the next day, you're talking to your family, you're talking to your spouse, and you say, you know what? Do you guys mind? Could I have an hour? Because I know that means other people in the house need to do more things because I'll be gone. But again, I'm really trying to bring more clarity, more health. I'm trying to get rid of some bad habits. And so I think this could really help. Watch how people step up to help you. You know the scene in Rocky, the training scene, where everyone knows he's probably going to lose this fight against this huge boxer, but he's going for it. And he's training, and he's called a shot. I'm going for it. I'm going to give it a shot. And he's training, and then he's running down the streets of Philadelphia, and you see the city rise up behind him. People start running with him. They start following him. And then you kind of feel like they're probably going to go work out. They're probably going to start boxing and getting in shape because they're running with him. They're so inspired. This guy's going for it. He's doing it. He's doing it. That happens in your family when you bring them into your goals, when you tell them what you're trying to get done each week. So what will happen is you'll find one of your kids, maybe it's not even an older kid, your 8-year-old will say, hey mom, I saw a TikTok about how to make pasta. Can I, with some supervision so that this doesn't end in terrible injury, why don't I try to make spaghetti for myself and the siblings? You go do your hour jog. Like, let's make this happen together. You watch how your family comes together for this. When you call your shot and you start with why, and you tell them what you're trying to get done. And so what you'll find, and by the way, maybe you won't always hit the goal. Maybe that week, okay, you didn't hit 4 hours, but you did hit 2.5. You actually did get 2.5 in of your jogging time. And let me just tell you, if you had that perfect daily keeping promises to yourself, like consistency mindset, I promise you, you would have not gotten half that. You would have been lucky to get 30 minutes total in, because you would have weakened yourself with all of these thoughts of guilt and shame. And then there's that feeling too of you've already failed. If your big promise to yourself is that I'm going to, every morning I'm starting with a jog, and I've made this commitment, and for sure that's what I'm doing. And then Monday morning comes around, your toddler's throwing up, you can't do it. There's kind of this feeling of, well, now I failed before I've even started. I mean, I can't say that I had my perfectly consistent week this week, so whatever, I'll try next week. I guarantee you that using this sprint mindset where you let your goals accumulate, like, okay, all right, well, now I'm trying to do an hour instead of 45 minutes because I'm making up time. You might not hit your goal perfectly, but you will get a heck of a lot more close to it than if you had that perfect daily consistency habit mindset. This is also true with any kind of creative goals. The way I wrote my book, Something Other Than God, which was an enormous project. I had to rewrite it from a blank page 3 times. Yikes. But yeah, it took 5 years. 5 years of just toil. And I've told you, I hired this mega, like, big time editor, very expensive. That was the biggest financial investment at that time that I had ever made in my career. To have her do a deep dive on it. I mean, it was, I got beat up. That was my rocky moment, was writing Something Other Than God. That was a lot. It was great, but it was a lot. And, but I mean, I say this to establish that I know what I'm talking about. It was a finalist in the Goodreads Reader Choice Awards. They only choose, like, I think 12 books, I think it is, of every book that was published. Well, actually, mine was in the memoir category. But of the tons of memoirs that were published that year, there were books by Hillary Clinton, Rob Lowe. I mean, it was like celebrity memoirs, and my book was in there. It had New York Times bestseller numbers. I was with an independent publisher, so didn't hit that particular list, but I had the numbers. And it's over 1,000 reviews on Amazon. It's done well. So I say that as encouragement to you, that I wrote that book in the midst of having 6 babies in 8 years. I started Something Other Than God when I had 3 children under age 3. Lucy, my third child, was a little baby. And when I turned in, I didn't realize what, like, kind of a perfect bookend this was. Okay, so I started it when Lucy, my third child, was a baby. I had 3 more babies in short succession while I was writing it. And then it was after my disastrous 6th pregnancy where I came so close to dying. And then the baby came so close to dying. It was right a month after that whole ordeal is when I finally finished the manuscript and sent it off for the final time. You know what's interesting is when this episode will be published, it will be published the week of 4th of July, 2023. And this is interesting. Yeah. 4th of July, 2013 is when I finished Something Other Than God. And I remember I was sitting there was one cafe that was actually open 4th of July. Or maybe it was the 3rd of July, but people were already doing fireworks. Because I remember thinking that other people were out, like, being normal and having fun, because I was watching fireworks. But I was like, I'm so close. I've been working on this book for 5 years. I have to finish this. And so I sat as dusk fell on July 3rd, 2013. I watched these fireworks in the sky, and I finished Something Other Than God. And the way I finished it was not to be consistent in my habits. I would hear writing advice from men whose wives raised their children that they'd be like, my writing time is that I write from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. without fail. And if you're serious about success, you will do the same. And every time, I've said this before, every time in the acknowledgments of the book, so they'll write writing advice books. They're like, if you're a serious writer, you need to do that. And these books would just send me into despair. They'd be like, my writing time is sacred. And like, this is, and it's a routine, and you're not going to get anywhere without a routine. And then you would read the acknowledgments, and they'd say, for Jessica, my incredible wife, I couldn't do it without you. You take our kids to all of their activities. You cooked nutritious meals while I was doing my writing time. And you just kept our house so beautiful. And like, I just love you so much. And, thank you. And I'd always be like, what if you're Jessica? You give us all of this advice. The advice is not for Jessica. Jessica didn't write any best-selling books because she was raising your children while you were having your writing time. And that's totally fine. I mean, if that is, a lot of families have that situation, and that is totally fine. But don't give advice like this is universal to everyone. Because if you are Jessica, if you're the one taking the kids to the activities and cooking the meals, it makes you feel like there's no opportunity for you to be the one writing best-selling books. That is why your friend Jen is here to tell you it can be done. I did it. And by the way, I had no money. I had no famous friends. I had no radio show. This was pre-radio. Do you know what I had when that book was published and had New York Times bestseller numbers? Do you know what I had? I had a blog.
Oh.
I had, and my publisher was super cool, but we had a marketing budget where it was like, I could spend like $1,000 on something. That is, I mean, there are some of the books you read by these influencer guys, their marketing budget is like $100,000. I had a blog and I had $1,000, and that is all I had. And the book got these awards and it became a bestseller. And I swear to you, I am not bragging. I'm not interested in writing another book right now. So this is not, I'm proud of the accomplishment. I am truly saying this for you guys, that I did it. I did it while having 6 babies in 8 years and having no money. I was talking either in this episode or in the previous episode about the years when the account is overdrawn. It's already overdrawn, and you realize, oh no, the electricity bill has not cleared and the account is already overdrawn. This is not good. And then as you're thinking that, your house goes dark. This was in those years. This was in the account overdrawn constantly. When the car breaks down, you just don't have a car anymore because you can't afford to get it repaired. This was in those years. I had no big influencer friends. I had a blog. I had a blog and $1,000. And so I just want to tell you guys it can be done. Even if writing is not your thing, even if you don't have latent self-hatred that would lead you to try to complete a book, which is the only reason that anyone should ever try to write a book. Whatever your goal is, it can be done, and it can be done while you are breeding recklessly, while you are taking the entire concept of family planning and trampling it. Whatever your goal is, you can do it while you are having babies at an Amish rate. It can be done. But the one concept you're going to have to get rid of is consistency. Is that I'm going to have my atomic habits every day. It won't work. That won't work. You won't be able to be consistent. The baby will keep you up at night, and the preschool will like shut down for some stupid reason, and that you can't drop the kids off, or the babysitter. Maybe you have a babysitter and she'll call in sick. You have to forget the concept of consistency, and you have to adopt the concept of the sprint. You have to learn how to sprint, where you set loose goals of when you would like to get things done. But the big thing you look at is, what would I like to accomplish this week or this month? And as long as you get there by hook or crook, one way or another, then you get it done. So what I did with Something Other Than God, I actually put on my Google Calendar my word count goals at the end of each week. So on Sunday, I would have word count goals. And I would review them all the time, and I'd take them very seriously. It's like, okay, I said I would write 2,000 words this week, and I'm not going to beat myself up if it doesn't happen, but I will move hell and high water. I'm going to try to hit this goal. Now, again, I would share it with my family. My family was in on this whole thing. They all loved it. The kids thought it was interesting, so I'd tell the kids. I would tell Joe, and then every day I'd update them. When we'd be hanging out in the evening, a lot of times we'd sit out front or we'd sit out on the back porch, and I'd tell Joe, I'd say, I only got 100 words in today, and that sucks. I mean, I wish I'd gotten more, so I'm hoping to hit it hard tomorrow. So Joe was apprised of it. So, I mean, if we were at Thursday and I had a 2,000 word goal and I was only at 500 words, we would strategize together. He would say, okay, well, what are we going to do? He'd say, all right, we've got that. We've got a kid's soccer game on Saturday, but he'd say, you know what? Right after that, I'll take the kids to McDonald's. Why don't you run home? You can have the house to yourself for like an hour. I'll put the kids down for nap right afterwards. And then that should give you like 3 hours maybe of pretty good time. And then of course I would support him with his stuff too. He'd say, you know what? I really want to go to Academy and buy some like camping. I don't know, some horrible thing that sounds horrible to me. And I'd say, yeah, great. Yeah, you give me that 3 hours and then I'll get the kids up from nap and then I'll start dinner and then you can be free, go down to Academy or whatever if you want. So it's not just about me and my goals, but Joe and I would constantly collaborate on a weekly basis. All right, what did we want to do this week? Where are we on that? Where are you on that? How can I help you? Where are we on that? First of all, you guys always worry about being selfish, or is it selfish to set goals? Think about how strong that makes your marriage. That was a very marriage strengthening thing. That every evening, first of all, it gave us a reason to hang out. There's sometimes when you've been married a long time and life is crazy, it is easy to kind of start ignoring each other, when you're like, oh, this person again. Yeah. And you almost like, you're so brain dead. You're like, well, what would we even talk about? I mean, I don't know. The electricity is about to get shut off. Like, I don't know. Like, what would we even talk about? But when you have goals, it gives you a reason to connect. We'd be like, hey, you know what? Let's sit on the back porch for a second. I want to tell you what happened when I tried to do my word count goals today. It gives you a reason to connect with your spouse, and it gives you a fun way to support each other. You're helping them do what they want to do. They're helping you do what you want to do. And again, to take it back to the main topic, you're not going to be able to be consistent on a daily basis, but you will be able to get it done one way or another. And honestly, I have some pretty fond memories of the Something Other Than God years when, we'd have, like, let's say a kid was crying all day and the plans were just like everything was falling apart. And Joe would be like, hey, you've only got 500 words left. You can do, like, let's do this. So he would hold the baby. He'd like take the baby in the jogging stroller, walk her around the block. He'd come in. He'd be like, where are we? I'd be like, 250 words. Just one more time around the block. It was fun. It was drama in the best possible way. And that's maybe the most important thing that I want to leave you with. Routines are boring. When you just consistently do the same thing every day, it's boring. When you have a sprint mentality where you set a more long-term goal for this week or this month, and you work towards it every day if you can, but you understand you will probably be interrupted and then have to make up for a lot of lost time when you actually manage to find some free time later in the week, it's drama. It's fun. It's fun to kind of burn the candle at both ends, especially when you bring your family into it. You say, okay, guys, I am behind. Tonight's the night. It's going to happen. Let's see if we can do it. It's drama. It's fun. It makes life interesting. So whatever it is that you dream of doing, you will bring so much fun into your family when you go for it. Your family will find it to be so much fun. It will be like that scene in Rocky. Everyone wants to run behind the guy who's going for it, who's taking a risk. And you just have to understand that there is a way to get it done. It's just not the way that secular culture would tell you to get it done. You know what your goal is. Set your goal on a weekly or monthly basis. Take it very seriously. Take that goal very seriously. Try to work towards it every day if you can. but accept it as a totally normal part of life when it doesn't work out, when you've gotten a little bit behind. And then realize that it's actually a really fun and cool thing when it's time to sprint. When it's time to make up for lost time and get it done because someone surprised you and came over and is babysitting your kids and hanging out with them, and you suddenly have 3 hours and let's go, let's do this. You sprint, and it is so much fun, and it is so much more interesting than having a consistent daily routine. And that is how each one of us are all going to become Village Hustle billionaires. So that's how I'll start making money on this podcast, is you guys are all going to get rich. And then you're going to come back and say, Jen, you know what? Here's a check. $1 million is nothing to me because I listen to your, like $1 million, like I spend that on my private jet fuel. So I'm just going to flat out, you don't need to deal with sponsors. I'll just write you this check because now I'm a Village Hustle billionaire. All right, more next week. Big announcements coming.